Welcome to everyone. This is Fallbrook Houston News.
We came here 5 years ago with Stephen Austin in 1825. I'm a long way from Virginia, where my daddy was born. But I reckon his daddy had to come just as far to get to Virginia from Scotland. Land, good land, brought me here to Texas. I don't speak much Spanish, but my land grant comes straight from Mexico. The Mexican government gave me the land free. My name's Matt Canyon. I plant cotton and I run a few head of cattle. I was born an American. Now I'm a Texan. Texas belongs to Mexico, but Mexico City's a long way off.
Me llamo Don Antonio Valdez. That is, my name is Antonio Valdez. I built my hacienda here in Tejas, the land the Americans call Texas. The adobe bricks the Indians used to build my house are made from the very earth it stands on. We came from Spain, from Avila. To this place the Indians taught our conquistadores to call Tejas, the friendly land. Americans call it Texas. This land was the land of New Spain. I hold it by grant from the King of Spain. I am a Tejan. I was a Spaniard. And I am a Mexican. But Mexico City is very far away.
Texas in the 1830s was a colony of Mexico, a complex land populated by people of different origins, races, and religions. The first Europeans to come to Texas were the Spaniards. In the early 16th century, Cabeza de Vaca and 3 companions, the shipwrecked survivors of a Spanish expedition, crossed the region now known as Texas. During the decades that followed, Spanish conquistadors, encouraged by de Vaca's reports, traveled north from Mexico, searching for the 7 golden cities of Cibola, legendary lands of fabulous wealth. The conquistadors never found the 7 cities of Cibola, but they gave Spanish names to the beautiful lands they saw on their journeys. The cities they did find were made of adobe rather than gold, so the conquistadors turned back, claiming this vast country, Tejas, the friendly land, for the King of Spain. Tejas included not only the state of Texas, but also most of New Mexico and portions of Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, and Wyoming. It was a vast land that stretched far from Spanish settlements in Mexico. Although Franciscan missions spread throughout Texas, colonization was sparse. Most Spanish colonial life still centered around Mexico City. In 1714, from Louisiana, a French merchant crossed into Texas. Worried about French intentions, the Spanish government in Madrid issued orders offering great areas of land free to Mexicans and Spaniards willing to settle this Tejas and keep it Spanish. And within a few years, there were thriving Spanish communities here. Early in the 19th century, a governor's palace was built at San Antonio, the capital of the Spanish colony of Tejas. But in 1821, messengers brought exciting news from Mexico City. Backed by Mexican conservatives and the army, Don Agustin Iturbide had set up a new Mexican government, independent of Spain. The Spanish settlers of Tejas became Mexican citizens. Tejas became a part of Mexico's northernmost province, Coahuila. Now, the land east of the Sabine River was American territory, acquired by the Louisiana Purchase. Even before Mexican independence, American traders had crossed the Sabine into the land they called Texas. Wild Mustangs roamed the Texas plains in great herds, attracting American horse traders who entered the country illegally, looking for horses to capture and sell. Their reports of the size and wealth of the land spread east to Americans in the South and Midwest. Economic troubles here were widespread, forcing many families to think about moving west to Texas and to new opportunities. One of these men was Stephen Austin, who convinced the Mexican government to recognize a land grant that had been given to his father. The small group he led west from St. Louis was followed by a steady stream of American colonists.
First thing, we cleared the land. We planted what we could sell, cotton mostly, and we built our homes. Now we were all living in Mexico, but things looked and felt pretty much the same way they always did in Virginia or Kansas. Oh, we'd talk about how somewhere off in Mexico City they took out a king and put in a general. Well, anyhow, things for us in Texas were pretty quiet. I had my Bible and my family, and that was enough for me.
The Mexican government encouraged increasing immigration by giving out extensive land grants. The traditional Spanish colonial society of Texas was being changed by these American immigrants. These mainly Protestant Anglo-Saxon settlers found themselves outsiders in a Catholic Mexican society. Here, the role of women in the family and the relationship between servant and master followed patterns that had been established hundreds of years ago in Spain, and it was alien to the Americans. The dictator, Bustamante, enacted many laws favorable to American immigrants. But when the American population of Texas became nearly 3/4 of its total population, he passed a law restricting American immigration and imposing strict customs duties on imported American goods. Americans began to meet all over Texas, worried that these measures were the beginning of greater repression. Some argued for legislative appeal, some for armed resistance. As the gap between the American settlers and the Mexican government widened, Stephen Austin made a public protest.
Texas needs peace and local government. Its inhabitants are farmers. They need a calm and quiet life. But how can anyone remain indifferent when our lives all appear to be in jeopardy?
Here at Gonzales, Texas, protests and diplomatic exchanges gave way to gunfire. The Texas Revolution of 1835 began with small skirmishes. In reaction, Mexico sent an army of 3,000 men north into Texas. It was led by Santa Anna, the new president of the Mexican Republic. In February of 1836, he laid siege to the Alamo, an old Spanish mission strategically located in San Antonio, the center of the old colonial government. It was a fierce battle. Despite incredible odds, men like Jim Bowie, Davy Crockett, and Bill Travis held out against the attacking army for 2 weeks of bloody fighting. The siege finally ended with a massacre of 150 men who defended the mission and a great number of deaths among Santa Anna's army of Indian conscripts. Sam Houston, leading a volunteer army, had been named commander of the Texas forces by the Congress of Texas, which declared the former Mexican colony an independent republic. His army met Santa Anna's forces on this wide plain at San Jacinto. The Mexican troops were taken by surprise and scattered in confusion as Houston's men swept down on their camp shouting, "Remember the Alamo!" Within 18 minutes, the Texans had killed 600 of Santa Anna's soldiers and wounded over 200. Santa Anna surrendered and recognized the independence of the Republic of Texas. But the Lone Star Republic was still threatened. Border disputes with Mexico, Indian raids, and an overwhelming flow of new settlers upset the economy and order of the new Texas Republic. As many Mexicans had predicted, Texans began petitioning for entry into the United States. But Congress did not act because of the growing national crisis over the slavery issue. The United States was divided into 13 slave states and 14 free states. Could Texas be admitted as a slave state? That would take the balance of power away from the free states. Some Americans, like ex-President John Quincy Adams, claimed that statehood for Texas was a Southern plot, a conspiracy for the purpose of extending slavery. But by the 1840s, continued migration to the free Oregon country was weakening opposition to Texas as a slave state. And in 1845, Texas was admitted to the Union in spite of protests from Mexico. Mexican and American troops skirmished over disputed lands between the Nueces and Rio Grande rivers. Hostilities continued, and with an eye on gaining additional southwestern territory, Congress declared war on Mexico in 1846. Santa Fe, San Francisco, and Los Angeles fell to the Americans. But as the war went on, and American troops got closer and closer to Mexico City, the morality of a war being fought primarily for territorial gain came under protest from Americans at home. One of them, the distinguished New England writer, Henry David Thoreau, went to jail rather than pay taxes to support what he considered to be an immoral war. But most Americans were jubilant when General Winfield Scott's troops entered Mexico City. For even though the morality of the Mexican-American War was doubtful, the value of American territorial gains was not. The lands ceded by the treaty today make up 4 complete states and parts of others. Later boundary adjustments gave the United States land that now makes up 10 states in all, a region greater than the area of France and Spain combined. American settlers poured into these new lands and also moved northwest through Utah to the Pacific. In 1848, on the banks of the American River in California, an important discovery was made: gold. Scattered farmhouses were replaced by raucous, gold rush boom towns as people rushed from the east to share in the wealth of these new lands, these newly American lands. The story of the Southwest is as old as its mountains and plains, a story of cultures that flourished, of the men and women who worked to make it a productive land, and of the blood that was shed to determine who would govern it. It was a land for pioneers, a symbol for the future. The American spirit always felt was just beyond the next ridge, Texas and the far Southwest.
Thank you for watching Fallbrook Houston News. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate that.